Institute in Houston, Texas. We're excited to see a lot of familiar names and faces and some new names joining us here. So we're going to be updating on some items from our annual meeting, our committee meeting at the TRB annual this past January, as well as some other follow-up and emerging items. So Judy?
Hi, everybody. Judy Shanley. I'm working with Todd as co-host of this committee. I know many of you. I'm at the National Office of Easter Steels, which is in Chicago, but I'm talking to you from Boston, Massachusetts right now, and we're excited to have your participation. We've got 36 people currently here, and we've got a lot of exciting updates and communications from TRB that we want to share with you. So welcome, everyone. And I am recording this. If anyone has any issues with me recording it, please let me know. We'll make sure to include all the materials and the recording on our website afterwards. So please send me a message directly if you have any challenges with me recording this. So thanks. Turn it over to our
I wanted
committee.
to make our fellow chairs. I think I saw both Yohai and Chungbo are on. Y'all want to say hello real quick?
Hello, happy spring, everyone.
Hey Yohai, good to see you.
Hello.
And
hi everyone. I don't need my camera. Hi everyone. Well, happy spring. So
spring. I just said it's cold and rainy in Boston, so I don't know if it feels much like spring to me, but yay, it's spring.
So yeah, Yohai and Chungbo are respectively continuing as our committee research coordinator and paper review coordinator. So we'll touch on some of those topics in the meeting. And then the same goes for Subhash and Susan, who've also been doing a wonderful job. I don't know. Oh, looks like Subhash is here.
Yay, Subhash.
Hi, good evening from India. This is Subhash Vasis. Yeah, hi.
And what is it, 3 o'clock in the morning, Subhash?
Not really. This is 9:30 p.m. So
okay.
Not really that late.
Okay.
Well, still pretty late. We appreciate you being able to hop on, and as well as anyone else. Obviously, we have a very international committee, which is great in terms of participation and perspectives from all around the world, but it makes the joining across time zones a challenge. And sorry for those that get the shorter end of the stick in terms of when we schedule these in terms of the expression. So yeah, just to go through in terms of our agenda, we sent this out as part of our meeting reminder, but really quick, I'm going to talk about a couple upcoming things. First, with respect to the Transit Cooperative Research Program and some upcoming RFPs that might be of interest to folks. We'll share some news that you might have heard from other committees about TRB's paper reviews process and what the status is of that, as well as beginning to think about ideas for the 2025 annual meeting. We just got off of the 2024 meeting, but we've gotten direction from TRB that it's already time to start thinking about 2025, and so we wanted to get that started here and as that cycle continues. We'll also talk about some updates to the newsletter and website that we made for the committee in the meantime, if you haven't had a chance to see it. And then TransEd and the continuing planning efforts for that conference. Judy and I just had some conversations this morning with some folks about that, so we'll share updates about how that's going. We'll talk a little bit, Yohai, you can give an update on research statement development and considerations there. I collected from folks prior to the meeting, and thanks for sending in advance updates from other committees at TRB that we're connected to. So I'll share some of the things that we heard there, and then any others that didn't get touched on, we'll make sure to have that in terms of our report outs. And then we will also have our other items for discussion. We have some notes on upcoming conferences and things that you've probably heard plugged elsewhere, but some additional ones. And then also some things that folks sent us in terms of newly published research, a survey effort, and so on and so forth. So thank you for signing in to the chat box. If you haven't already, if you're able to, please sign in with your name and organization so we can see who attended. As always, this is our usual disclaimer, but make sure that during the meeting, if you're not speaking, to mute your microphone, just to make sure we don't have any background noise and the audio is clear for folks. You can use I'm actually not sure this note on raising your hand in Zoom. It might be an outdated note, but we'll keep an eye out on folks that unmute and want to speak, or if you have a comment in the chat, I'm keeping an eye on the chat in the meantime, because we do want, as always, to make sure that folks get a chance to provide feedback and chime in throughout, particularly on some of the idea generating discussion pieces. So, with that, obviously we're a very diverse committee in terms of background and stuff. So be respectful of different perspectives that come up. Only one person speaks at a time. And then it doesn't look like anyone's having any technical issues right now, but if something comes up, we'll try to assist as it's happening. So just to start off, in terms of those TCRP anticipated RFPs that are coming out, there's a whole, probably a set of like 10 or 12, I believe, but these are the three that at the top that I particularly identified that are in the works in terms of anticipated to come out. And so I think even the panels are being formed, if not, I don't know if they're finalized for these or not, but just to name them real quick, we have B54, paving the way for inclusion, addressing gaps in measuring disability within transportation data systems. B55, guidelines for surveying hard to reach populations for small, medium, and large transportation agencies. And the description of that tentative RFP does include language about measuring population information for persons with disabilities. So it's a part of that work, even if it's not in the title. And then F33, enriching transit's workforce, recruiting and retaining individuals with disabilities. Obviously very evident, the importance of that for our committee is evident there. So just want to draw your attention again from when we followed up to that. And if you're, there might still be availability to be on the panel. I'm not sure. If you're interested, you can reach out to the designated staff officer for one of those respective projects. And then obviously, if you're interested in actually doing the research for that, then something to think about in terms of that. The other one,
Todd, can I just say something about
go ahead, Judy.
The TCRP panels? You may have seen that the National Academy of Sciences have implemented pretty stringent conflict of interest and bias requirements, which is new. They've had some national issues associated with their partnerships, and so that's trickled down to being on panels. And one thing I learned is that if you are on a panel and an organization that you are doing business with, have a financial relationship with, even though it may not be related to the current panel, that constitutes a bias or a potential conflict of interest. And so, be mindful that the conflict and the bias not only pertains to the particular work at hand, but other projects that your organization or entity might have. So it's very strict. There's solid reasons for why they've done this, but it may limit your capacity for being on some of these panels. And Todd and I always encourage our members to be on panels, not only with the TCRP, the NCHRP, the airline cooperative research program, not only on our related on the problem statements that we submit, but others. But just be mindful that you have to be careful about the conflict and bias. And we're happy to, what we should do, Todd, maybe we could post that to the website just so people have it at hand, the
Sure.
requirements that TRB has. So thanks.
Conflict
I
of
just
interest
wanted to say
requirements.
that, it is changed and it's really, really stringent. So I just wanted to make people aware of that.
Yeah, good. Great point, Judy. And the other one, BZ actually reached out to make sure I mentioned the TCRP B51, floating transit stops and passengers with vision disabilities. That RFP is out, though it's due tomorrow. So I assume that if you're interested in it, that you hopefully have some together, or you have a lot of time in the next 24 hours or so.
Go right.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't be here on this call. Yohai, I see your hand up.
Just had a question in terms of the timing of these three that you mentioned here. Do you have a sense for like what the timeline is in terms of how it works for, sounds like they may be meeting as a panel soon and then
When they get announced and stuff.
Right, yeah.
I think the panels are being formed as we speak. And then in terms of when they get actually announced, I would expect that these three would be announced in the next couple of months. They never give, they just say anticipated, but they don't say when the anticipated date is.
Right.
But I would expect in the next couple of months, and then usually after it's posted, it's probably 5 to 6 weeks from posting date of when the actual RFP is due. So it's a good time. With the anticipated statement, there's usually some updates to the language when the actual RFP is posted, but the anticipated still gives a clue of what's going to be in the final RFP when it's out. So it's a good time to start planning now.
Yeah.
I saw a hand up from Anne, but you might have put your hand down, Anne.
Yes, I did. No worries. Thank you.
Just checking. Okay, well, I'll move on from that, and I know we want to talk about this. So with respect to the paper reviews changes during the annual meeting in January, TRB had let the committees know that there were some emerging concerns about the volume of papers essentially being received by committees at large, across TRB, and being able to handle that increased volume along and provide quality, thorough reviews for each committee. And I think our committee hasn't in the last 6 years or so hasn't received hundreds of papers like some of these other committees. We're usually around the 30 to 40 range, which has been fairly manageable. But there's other committees that receive 200 papers or more that are in their subject area, and that's part of the concern that TRB's had in terms of putting that work on volunteers, obviously. So with respect to that, they had announced to committee some initial plans to move towards a more of a shortened summary, like kind of extended abstract submission for presenting at TRB annual meetings, and then that being the basis of review for each committee to look at that. I think maybe something like a 1,000 words or something like that. I'm not exact, shorter than a research paper, obviously. And then that would be a little bit more manageable for particularly committees with higher volume of papers. And then for the publication consideration for the transportation research record, that would be separated out in a different submission process, was what kind of the initial things that were floated to committees were about that. They received in the most recent communication, so this is earlier in April, I believe, they sent out a notification to us that they're not going to do that this year for annual 2025, but they're doing a pause and pilot in quotations approach to do the same process that we have this year. People submit papers, we review, the full papers and for publication and presentation consideration. But then they are going to be exploring in the meantime these short format submissions and how that will work. We haven't gotten more information about what that means in terms of the exploring part of it. I imagine that TRB is going to reach out sometime in the next couple of months about how they might pilot that with some committees, or I don't know if that will be with some committees or with all committees or whatnot, or opportunity for us to provide input on that. But I think it is something that TRB is moving towards, is having a short format submission process. And so it's something for us to begin thinking about. And it's also an opportunity for, I'm sure folks have feedback and comment on that Judy and I can bring back to TRB.
Yeah, please, if you have any thoughts about that. I think we shared with you at the annual meeting that this came about because there was one reviewer that had reviewed 250 papers across, across 20 committees. And whether that's realistic or not is questionable, and it was all AI driven. And so that's where this came about. It just became a burden, and the validity of the reviews were questions. So Todd and I meet with other committees in our section quarterly. We have an upcoming meeting. And so if there's any thoughts preliminarily that you guys have around the review process and what is the right amount of information to include in an abstract that you want reviewers to look at. Is it important to have all of the sections, all of the requirements that we have now? What is absolutely necessary for you as a reviewer to consider to make a valid decision about a paper? So please send Todd and I your preliminary thinking that we could share with our section chair. And as Todd said, I'm sure there's going to be future opportunities for us to weigh in more. If anyone wants to be part of a pilot, perhaps, I'm sure they'll ask committees for names. So send us your preliminary thinking about what the proposal process should look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking for any questions or hands on this. And then if not, we'll share more information as it comes up. And so segue into the 2025 annual meeting. Always right around the corner. So the direction we got from TRB was with respect to workshops starting there, is that the submissions are due. It seems like it's a little earlier, but maybe it's not. The submissions for workshops are due June 15th. And the way it works is within our section, AME00, of which there are 8 or 9 other committees. There are 4 total workshop slots that go to committees that are in the section. Not every committee submits workshops. Some committees submit multiple workshops, and then they get decided for consideration by TRB. One of the things that helps a workshop for consideration is if there's committee support. Anyone can do a submission, but it's really beneficial, if it's something that we generate as a group in AME50, and then we can put AME50 support behind it. The other thing to go along with that is that if there are sponsorship opportunities with other committees, as is common at TRB, then that obviously gets more support there as well. I have the note at the bottom of this slide on AP045 passenger intermodal facilities is working on a workshop on tactile walking surface indicators, and so that could be something that they've already put their support behind that. And some of the liaison updates I'll share later. There's or maybe it's on the following slide. There's some other opportunities for that. Let me check. So these are just to jump ahead. I mentioned AP045. They already have a plan in progress. AP020, Innovative Public Transportation, is tentatively planning a rural mobility Sunday workshop. And then AP090 is working on a workshop for the TIDES data standard, which is a transactional data specification. And so those are a couple things we know are in progress that could be of interest. But just want to start there. Judy and I will, in follow-up to this meeting, obviously based on our ideas and other ideas generated or your ideas now, follow up on actual workshop development. But I'll pause there. Any thoughts, questions on workshops for TRB?
Hey, Todd, just to add to that, remind people that the workshops are usually occur on the Sunday or Thursday, so bookend of the conference. They're usually 3 hours in duration, and they're usually interactive and applied. So when you're thinking about workshop concepts, think about the applicability and replicability of the content. It's usually not just lecture, not just people on a panel talking about work. It's actually having interactive opportunities with the participants to engage in dialogue and application of what you're sharing. We had some really great workshops last year, and all of that information is posted on our website. So if you think you have an idea and you want to get more information about format or style, certainly you could speak to Yohai or Todd or I about what that idea is and what kind of format you could present it in.
And I want others. I'm looking for hands, so I don't want to take up all the bandwidth. But Judy, I don't know if one follow-up might be the accessibility and air travel. We were trying to have a workshop last year that ended up as a lectern session, but I know there was interest in having a continued follow-up series sort of thing. So that's one that comes to mind immediately.
Yep, good idea. Yeah, the notion of working with other committees is really appealing to TRB. Especially like the whole airline work, airport work that we've done historically around accessibility is something, it's not in that transit domain necessarily, and that's appealing to TRB.
So while I'm looking for any questions on that, the other note we had is to already start planning for lectern session topics. Of course, these are I think hour 45-minute sessions that are more presentation based. We don't have a deadline. I don't see Bill here in the meeting, but we can ask when we regroup with our section about that. The deadline to submit is October 1st, but they've encouraged us to go ahead and start planning on what some potential topics might be. In some years, we've had these based on like paper submissions and grouping topics together. We had a couple of those last year for our lectern sessions, or we can do invited speakers. Usually we get 2 lectern sessions per committee that we're eligible to apply for. And so similarly, if there is something that from a speaker standpoint that doesn't have as much of the workshop interactivity element, but it would be great to have invited speakers and experts on a given topic, then the lectern session, we can start planning that now and get feedback on that proactively. Okay. Let me go ahead and,
Yeah, I don't see any questions,
yeah, I'm
Todd.
just making sure. So Bill or James, I'm just making sure in the list they're not here. If they're able to join later, we'll see if there's other additional TRB updates to share. But then I'll go ahead and talk about the newsletter and my TRB stuff first. Oh, Susan, you're here.
Yeah, Susan's
Hi,
on.
Susan.
Yay.
Susan, is there do you want to give an update on the newsletter status and planning?
Sure, I can do that. Sorry, I joined a little late. I had
No
some
problem.
technical issues. So as most of you probably know, we're doing the newsletter quarterly. Often it's tied to coming out after these meetings, so it includes, updates that we've discussed. And we hope to share a little bit more information to keep it interesting. So are certainly open to contributions for short articles. We have information on our website around, the parameters for that, largely being that they be relevant to the committee, of interest to a wide group of people, and they're not to promote or sell anything. That's really it for the newsletter. As I say, we try to put it out quarterly, so there'll be one coming out shortly, hopefully in the next week or so. And I think that's about it, unless there's questions.
Great. Yeah, and we definitely Judy and I and Susan have talked about, trying to get some more involvement and guest contributions on the newsletter. So if there's something that you want to share that follows the guidelines, we definitely encourage it. I put in the chat a link to the web page that has the previous newsletters and updates, and it also has those guidelines for contribution that Susan mentioned there. And so you can check that out and see some previous examples if you haven't already. And then Susan, we usually send that out by email as well.
We do, and in fact, we use the TRB mailing list now. So that's why it's extra important to do what I'm sure you'll cover a few times during this meeting, is keep your MyTRB information up to date so that you do receive that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what the bottom half of this slide, those directions to make sure, I think most of you, if not all of you here, probably got here because you're a friend of AME50 and MyTRB. But they recently in April, basically for people who were inactive, or they had, let me back up. They had everyone recertify their friendships to committees, and you probably saw those emails. And then the people who didn't do that were essentially purged, from committee friendship in the system, and that was to get rid of, inactive email addresses and things like that. But of course, people can miss the email information. They did provide Judy and I with a list of those folks that hadn't refriended our committee.
There's a lot of them.
It's so we reached out to you and others who got those emails about making sure you do that. If you, I did get an email from one individual saying they wanted to do that, but because of issues with the accessibility of MyTRB, they were not able to follow the directions and do that. And so if that's a concern for you as well, please let me know, because I want your name and information so I can take that to the TRB staff and see if we can get some assistance for you to do that on the back end. Because frankly, it's disappointing that there's issues with people being able to use the website, not on the website on TRB to make that happen. And we want to make sure that you're plugged into what we're doing there. So let me know if you're not able to refriend if you haven't already. But the reason we keep harping on this is so this is the only way going forward that we can communicate in mass to members and friends is through the MyTRB system.
And just in TRB's defense a little bit, they there should be no defense for this in terms of accessibility, but they've been asking us for resources around accessibility and digital accessibility in particular. And so I was thinking, and I haven't even talked to Todd about this, is maybe we could have an AME50 webinar on digital accessibility and communications accessibility. And there's some national centers that we may negotiate with to do it for free for us. So keep an eye out for that. I know that when we were organizing TransEd a couple of years ago, Jeanette Jimenez had put together a really nice resource for presenters on how to make presentations accessible. And I know at Easter Seals, our team has been doing amazing work around that. And there's some other national organizations who put together materials, but even TCRP and the Cooperative Research Program, they're very interested in digital accessibility. So if anyone has any resources, particularly that they want to share, send them to me. We'll compile them. We'll make them available to you, and look out for a webinar that we might be planning for our committee.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea for a webinar. So in the chat, Amy O'Hara mentioned the GSA has resources, which we should have access to. So we'll make sure to make a note of that. And then thanks, Amy, for that. And then Joanne reached out to me on a resource that she put together with a breakdown for individuals who are blind who would like to be a friend of the committee. So yeah, Joanne, if you can send that to me and we can distribute that as well, I think that could help with this issue for sure.
Yeah, we're viewed as leaders for the rest of TRB and other committees. That's kind of neat. It's a little overwhelming and daunting, but other committees look to us for accessibility information. So anything that we could support TRB as an organization. I know that there's been some issues with some of the webinars that they've had in accessibility. So let's be kind of mavericks in all of this and ensuring that TRB has the best information they can get.
Absolutely. And next I'll go to the website. And so Subhash, you want to talk about these updates, and I can actually put them on the screen as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Todd. So good evening. I mean, this is, of course, in India, it's good evening, good morning to everyone. So this is Subhash Fascist from India. We have done some wonderful updates on the website recently. So the homepage has most of the details about committee announcements that you can look up to for any immediate or new item on the agenda that's up on the committee announcements. Membership details is something that we have recently added, which leads you straight to the committee membership and which takes you to TRB, the Standing Committee on Access, Transportation and Mobility, the AME50, the current composition. And this really has most of the details. We'll go back to the, and a few more updates that we recently did was in the community resources. And here we have put up some reading resources and also useful websites. And on the community resources page, we have various papers that would be interesting for or of interest to the committee members as they are related to our subjects. So these are available. These are all free resources. So they can be downloaded or they can be accessed online for free. You go back to the community resources page. So the other one is useful websites. So this section has a lot of websites where you get ready information. So as per the TRB new guidelines, we can have websites of organizations that are resourceful. So they could be put here. Of course, we can't put consultants or commercial interest organizations website, but yes, any website that you can also refer to us, which has a lot of information for the subject that we are dealing with, we would be happy to put it here.
Yeah, let me scroll down.
Yeah, I think majorly these are these are major changes that we recently conducted.
Yeah, and these look great. Subhash has done a wonderful job with when Judy and I or others ask him that, hey, please put this on there, please do this, whatnot. You know, that's I'm proud of how our committee webpage looks, and we've gotten good feedback from folks, friends, and other committees about it as well. So yeah, definitely, again, these with the useful websites and reading resources, we want these to follow the guidelines, you know, similar guidelines in terms of not being, you know, commercial and such, you know, similar with the newsletter. But we want to, you know, have a place that we're able to gather and share this information accordingly. So yeah, if there are no questions on that.
Who's
Judy,
that lady with the brown hair in that photo? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if
wow.
our very own, yeah. Great. Thanks, Susan and Subhash, for those updates and plugs. So next we'll go into TransEd. Judy, do you want to take this?
Sure. A subject near and dear to all of our hearts. You know that we had the last TransEd meeting we had virtually. We had a pivot. It was scheduled to be in the United States in 2022, and we pivoted and made it a virtual meeting. So this year we're really looking for a host country, host organization that we could have an in-person meeting. Thank you to all of you who have suggested places. It's a big lift for a host organization because we don't get a lot of financial support from TRB to host this conference. They're really great about providing support regarding registration information, marketing, reviewing of papers. They provide the portal for us to do that, but no financial support. And so when we approach a potential host organization, we have to ask them to lay out money potentially to secure venue, space, meeting space, AV equipment. And so we've had a recent conversation with the university in the UK, which would make it easy for a lot of us to travel to. And it was originally scheduled, the TransEd meeting, for 2025, but it's not realistic for us to have that at this point. And so we're seriously talking with them. We're bringing together TRB and this organization for 2026. So keep on the lookout for communications. Nothing is confirmed yet. We're relying on the expertise of our members and friends who have tons of experience in planning TransEd conferences, and we're excited about the conversations that we've been having with this entity. So if anyone, we still consider host agencies, it's a really nice opportunity for an organization and a geographic area to get a lot of international attention for their progress around accessibility. So if we're still open to consider ideas, welcome any discussions, but we're committed to having it in person with a virtual option. I know that's a concern to many, that we have an opportunity for potential streaming of maybe the opening and closing sessions. It's really going to depend upon cost for a lot of this stuff, but we're excited. I'm excited, and I hope Todd is too, with the conversation we just had, and we'll keep you posted.
Absolutely.
So, and
yeah,
what we talked about is July of 2026, the summer of 2026. So,
yeah, that's our current target.
And you know what, one of the things to think about, I don't know how many of you are going to the CATE conference, the Council on Transportation Equity, or the Committee on Transportation Equity, that's this July in Baltimore. You know, TRB has provided support to that committees conference, similar to what they provided us for our last Trans Ed conference. So if you have an opportunity to review any of the materials that you've seen coming out around CADE, and knowing that we're going to likely use that as a model as we develop communication, recruitment materials, etc., for the Trans Ed conference. So if anyone has any thinking about any of those materials, please share them. Are people going to CADE? Just you could put a little note. We were asked if we wanted to have a committee meeting physically at CADE, but I've heard mixed feedback from many about whether people are going or not. So I didn't know if it was a viable. Shayna's going.
And I'll put the link in the chat for those that don't have it for the CADE conference.
Okay, we've
So
talked
we have at
about
least
the
Shayna.
expense.
Yes.
It's expensive. It's really expensive. And, obviously the costs for the meeting have to be covered. And so they're subsumed under a conference registration cost. And we've talked to TRB numerous times about a discounted rate for a nonprofit, for human service, for people with disabilities. And we haven't gotten much traction in reducing rates. So it is a pretty expensive registration cost, but.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions right now on Trans Ed, Judy and I just wanted to share that update, and thank you to those who, since the annual meeting have helped with the planning and ideas generating conversation with Judy on that. It's been very valuable, and so we'll continue to regroup on, or to have those conversations as more opportunities come up. And please send, as Judy said, please send to us any additional opportunities that you identify that you think are worth pursuit with that summer 2026 target in mind. So next I'll go to research statement discussion with Yohai.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Todd and Judy. Just a quick update. We met during the annual conference and talked about the process and talked about some different ideas for research statements. And then some of that in terms of learning about the process, there's a link that Todd shared here that has the planning page. I don't know if Todd, you can drop it in the chat too, but that could give you a little bit of an idea of the process for developing research statements. From there, interested participants signed up through a Google Sheet or through email to me. We had 12 topics that we were looking at total that people were interested in, and then people signed up for any kind of topic that they were specifically interested in. From there, we kind of identified the ones that seemed to have at least 2 people interested and someone kind of volunteering to be the leader. Because if you look at the planning page, one of the things you'll see is that as the coordinator, I'm working to help coordinate these statements, but I'm not necessarily going to be involved in writing the full statement. So I help by providing support and mentoring on how these statements work, but I'm not the one always who will be writing out the statements unless it's like a topic that's of interest to me. Also wanted to thank Kaylin Levin from Eastern Carolina University, who is helping to kind of be a co-coordinator in a way, officially or unofficially, and really appreciate her support. You may have received email from her if you signed up for one of the teams. So what me and Kaylin did was split up the teams and kind of share an email to get things started with those teams. And so right now we have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 active teams who are started out either that Kaylin or I have emailed you. There's been some email communication. Some teams have had an initial meeting, and some teams are kind of continuing on from last year because, sometimes a statement gets developed maybe for TCRP for a problem statement and it wasn't accepted, you can kind of rework it, right? Try to use some feedback maybe from the internal team. The TCRP doesn't give feedback itself, but you can kind of use feedback from the team itself and try to revise that statement and resubmit it this year. So some of the topics, just to list them quickly, there's a topic on accessible bicycle infrastructure and programs that already has had a team meeting and has started to do some background research around that topic to develop likely a NCHRP statement in November, or perhaps a synthesis statement in February of 2025. There's a topic on ride-hail costs for the disability community, as we see ride sharing and all the TNCs growing. How is that experienced in terms of costs for people with disabilities? There's a topic on obstacles and the degree of severity that people experience and how to capture that in research in terms of infrastructure obstacles. There's a topic on artificial intelligence and accessible transportation. A topic on best practices for evaluating transportation equity. A topic on service quality and assessment, and a topic on broadband equity and mobility access. So those are all our kind of live topics that we have teams for actively trying to meet or working. If you're interested in joining any of those, feel free to email me. My email is on this slide, and happy to link you up with that team. Some teams are looking for a leader or co-leader. So if you're really kind of passionate about one of those topics, happy to have you involved to develop some of those statements. And this is, really a lot of the important work that helps drive research, right? Kind of from the ground up in terms of you being aware of a topic and you being a part of a process to do background research and then develop a synthesis for what are the key needs around that topic. So I think that, unless anyone has any questions on that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks. Yohai, I was just going to say, if you could, for those 7, if you have just the bullet point titles, maybe drop them in the chat just so
Sure.
People have them. And definitely, if you're interested in any of those or a different research statement, topic development, something that there's not, there's a research gap in one of the CRP programs can help, definitely reach out to Yohai about it. And great job to you, Yohai, and Kaylin as well in terms of organizing these teams and getting these really interesting and worthwhile topics going. It's really exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's really a neat feeling to put in a problem statement and have it accepted. It's really, it's a professionally, it feels terrific. So I encourage all of you to think about statements that reflect the needs of our industry.
And I think at our mid-year meeting, we'll have a little bit more of a block to discuss and brainstorm during the meeting. Some further, get an update on those, and then further topic development as a group. But in the meantime, we'll keep an eye out for notes about and suggestions about that. So this was just a note I had on. I think these were notes from actually BZ sent these in advance of some previous research statement submissions that had been submitted, one on pedestrian change interval indications and pedestrians with vision disabilities, and then audible indications for accessible pedestrian signals. Those don't have a decision on funding yet. And then a proposed submission for this year that they've been working on with AP045, the passenger intermodal facilities group that she's involved with a lot, is the field testing of tactile walking surface indicators in transit facilities. So some other things for us to be aware of there. So I'm going to go through some of the liaison report outs that were provided to me, and thank you to everyone who got back to me about that. The paratransit subcommittee, AP0551, met earlier this year and is looking to coordinate with, and obviously we have friends and members that are on that committee, but has discussed looking to coordinate more on TCRP research submission deadlines and Transed and such. So we're continuing to look to strengthen that relationship and what the subcommittee is doing with what we're doing in mutual interest there. And they're also working on updates to their website to help with broader engagement of ideas and subcommittee activities. AME20, Women and Gender, they recently had a webinar through TRB on navigating gender dynamics in ride hailing and perspectives from academia and the industry, which included some presentations on basically rider and user perceptions and use of TNCs like Uber and Lyft, and such. So I believe the recorded information from that is available, and then a research paper on that topic that was also that might be of interest to folks is this one on a gendered perspective on ride-hail use in Los Angeles, USA, which is available. And by the way, this PowerPoint presentation we'll share and have available with the meeting follow-up. On AP055, Jill provided an update from the Rural Intercity Bus and Specialized Transportation Committee for their own conference planning. They have traditionally had and I'm sure several I've attended and others here have as well, their TRB sponsored Rural Intercity Bus Transportation Conference in the past, or RIPTIC. They're moving, at least for this next conference upcoming period, they're moving away from, in lieu of hosting that, to instead work with National RTAP, the Rural Transit Assistance Program, and help with planning in that 2025 conference. So it'll be more of a combined effort between AP055 and National RTAP. So I'm sure there'll be opportunity for us to help share ideas and perspectives there. And then the Transit Data Committee, AP090, in their upcoming mid-year meeting, I'm a member of this committee, they're going to have a session on research needs statement development, and they also, during the meeting, and then they also have, kind of similar to the process you have Yohai, they have a subgroup interest forum, they call them subcommittee, in the development of research statements. So that'll be available in the slide if you're interested, in including accessibility concerns and such to transit data topics. So these are for all these committees on the slide, these are the ones with the green check mark next to the committee number. Folks, I heard updates or no update at this time. But I didn't, if someone has a quick little bite of an update from their committee I didn't touch on or you didn't provide to me already, now speak now.
Yeah, you may remember that we developed the liaison structure as a way for information sharing, resource sharing across other committees. So not only do we report on in our work what's going on, these liaisons, the people's names that you see here are kind of the point person between the two committees. So they update us regarding the big ideas, big work going on in these other committees. And conversely, these folks represent us with other committees to make sure that the topic of accessibility, inclusive transportation, and mobility are all foundational in the work that they do. So if any of you are not currently a liaison to one of these committees or a committee that's not identified here, please let Todd and I know. It's just really a great information sharing, collaboration, coordination activity. Absolutely.
So wanted to plug these things going on. In next month in Austin, Texas is the AI in Motion Symposium, which in all these have the event details. We mentioned the CATE conference which is coming up in July, which will be a great one to go to, is in Baltimore. And then the International Conference on Women and Gender in Transportation, another committee in our section in September in Irvine, California, is having their conference. And I see there's a question in the chat from Solomon. Is there any opportunity for committee members and friends to engage in a tribute to the CATE conference? I believe absolutely so. And we can, Solomon, if you're interested, if you reach out to Judy and I, we can get you connected. I mean, they're well underway with things that they're doing, but I'm sure they'll look for the volunteer help if you're interested in helping with them.
Yeah, we actually had members and friends of our committee be part of their planning committee. So that was really neat. We had members and friends who served as reviewers for their proposals. And I know that many people from this committee are presenting at that conference. So, certainly if you have any interest, as Todd said, in volunteering or doing further work with Kate, they're a nice partner for us. So they would welcome, I'm sure they would welcome the participation of all of you.
And then Smart Growth America reached out to us about this survey, which I just sent in the chat, on accessible streetscape design for the disability community. It's intended for people with disabilities to take the survey. So obviously, if that's applicable to you, you can take it, or you can pass it along to your networks to be able to contribute to this this survey effort, which is, and they're looking for responses by May 24th is when they're slated to close. So make sure you check that out if you're interested. Also, the B46 guidebook, and I don't want to butcher the title, but BZ provided this on tactile wayfinding in transportation settings for travelers who are blind or visually impaired, was recently published. And so you can find that as well. Exciting that this project, that was funded and the research that took place from that effort is now available. Any other, in the minute we have left, any other quick announcements of things coming up that relevant to AME50 that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Or if there's anything, if you think of afterwards, please share them with Todd and I. Will make sure that they get included in the minutes, and we'll have it, if it's appropriate, posted to our website. Paste a link to the guidebook.
I will do that now, absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And so with that, I'm looking for hands and microphones. But in the meantime, Judy and I planned the next mid-year meeting, which will be an hour and a half. So we'll have a little more time for discussion, and particularly with respect to research development, Transed updates, and TRB annual meeting planning. But that'll be July 24th from 12 to 1:30 Eastern Time US. In a virtual meeting. So we'll send out the invitation and connection information for that. But as Judy said, and as we have on the slide, you can reach out to us at any time about ideas or on what we discussed here, or other things that you think would help with everything that we want to do here at AME50.
And if any of you are going to be at Kate, let Todd and I know. Maybe we could have an informal meeting. So.
Yeah, we know Shayna will be there. Maybe Solomon and Amy. All right.
Good. Yep. Anyone have anything else? Any burning issues, topics?
I'll reach out you, Judy, and Todd about my interest to participate, maybe contribute in some way for Kate.
Yeah. Terrific. Perfect. Yay. Well, okay. I guess not seeing any hands. Thank you all for your continued participation. Update my TRB, please, so you get access to our communications, and we're very grateful for your participation. So thank you.
Absolutely. Good to see y'all. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye,
See
everybody.
you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.